Another crafting vlog? That's just how I roll. Hey there, welcome to the Teeny Tinkers channel. I make ball jointed doll and craft related content. I can admit some of my early eye attempts were a mess. A lot of a mess. But I'm coming at the task with a fresh pair of eyes, quite literally. Also, I promise that that is the end of the eye puns. Okay, so I'm starting out with some 3D printed bases. I sculpt my own in Blender or Nomad Sculpt and then print them out in white resin. I do have a video on this channel where I do make some eye bases if you ever want to try and make your own. I also sell eye bases over on my website, just as a side note. I did print some of these a little close together, so there are some small chips and support pieces here and there, so I just need to clean those up before I get started. I use a fine grit sanding sponge for this. I just got a new pack from Panda Hobby, which is a Canadian craft retailer, because they also had Mr. Super Clear UV Matte, which is weirdly sold out everywhere, literally, or like $30 a can. Okay, but back to sanding. The sanding helps remove some of the yellowing that happens when you cure the eye bases in UV light, so we're whitening the eyes at the same time. Once I'm done sanding, I rinse the eyes in some water and then dry in a microfiber cloth. You need to let them dry fully or the paint is not going to apply as I intend. I won't have to wait too long though. In just a few minutes, the eyes are fully dry and I can get started. I have a bunch of different eye sizes here from 8mm to 14mm, but I'm gonna start with the 14s because they're the easiest to see as I'm painting them. To start, I'm going to put down a base color. Resin printed bases can be really slippery and not very toothy. This means it can be difficult to get chalk pastels to grab on right away. I have some really nice quality ones I got from a hobby shop, which are meant for painting minifigures. But I like the colors in this set for face-ups and eyes, so I picked them up. I'm sticking with natural tones this time: greens, blues, grays, and browns. But I keep the colors lighter so I can build on them after. These paints dry really quickly, and by the time I've completed the base colors on the last one, they are all ready to clean up and sharpen with some outlines. Going in with my trusty Derwent Inktense watercolor pencils, I carefully line the ridges of my eye. I use whatever color I think will suit the base color of the eye I'm going to be painting. This helps keep everything crisp and beautiful. I prefer to use darker colors on the outside of the eye, sort of like a circle lens. If you wanted a more natural effect, you could use a color more close to the base color you've used with the paint. Also, if you're like me and you notice you've smudged things out of the lines a little bit, you can just use a magic eraser and clean up the edges and keep everything nice and bright and white and contained. I like to paint my eyes in pairs, so I'm using some sticky putty to place them on a base. If you're asking what are those bases, they are a piece that I meant to hollow out and then forgot to, and now I have 6 of these really heavy little resin bases, but they are perfect for holding while painting eyes, so I'm glad to have them now. Typically with flat-backed eyes, you could just use a bit of putty to stick them right onto the base. However, these eyes have stems, so I have to add a little more putty and kind of press the stem into the putty. By the way, if you're into crafty type videos, I do have a second channel, Teenier Tinkers, where I post a lot of more casual crafting type things. Feels a lot more like a hangout session than some of the videos on this channel, so if that's your jam, go check it out. Okay, time to crack out the Mungyo chalk pastels and add some dimension to the color. I like to add yellows, dark blues, greens, and oranges into the mix. I use a flat-ended brush to sort of press the color where I want it and blend it out with a fluffy brush after. Don't be afraid to really pack the pigment. It will be darker and toned down later. Adding in these pastels really adds some life and color to these, and they look so much more beautiful. Of course, I do love a solid color eye too, and with the way the ridges are done in the base, it does pick up extra paint and add dimension, even with just the base coat. But I actually really just love the way it looks with the chalk pastels. Also, if you've made it this far into the video, chances are you kinda like my content. I do have a lot of really cool content coming up this year, and I'm excited to try some new things over here. So if you like dolly content and ball jointed doll things and all that kind of stuff, it's a good moment to go ahead and like and subscribe. And if you want to leave a comment, I do try and reply to every single one, although sometimes it takes me a little while. But I really love chatting with you guys down in the comments. But anyways, I'm feeling pretty happy with the color at this point, and it's time to seal it in. Now, I know what you're thinking, isn't MSC liquid gold right now? And yes, but I did find Mr. Super Clear Gloss on sale for like $4 a can, and I thought, wouldn't that be a fun alternative to the matte I usually use? The Gloss Mr. Super Clear takes about 20 minutes to fully cure, so while we wait, let's check out the doll of the week. And yes, I know it's not doll of every week, but I'm honestly just excited to be shouting out folks again. This week's doll, or dolls, come from Hopeful Creation. Pablo has been doll of the week before, but it was over a year ago, and I needed to share the super cute pictures of his Teeny Tinkers dolls. In particular, here are some pictures of his cast MSDs he's collected, although one of the hollows, the taller one, is a 3D printed first version prototype doll, so it's not even what the cast dolls ended up looking like, but it's really fun to see it in rotation as well. He also has a cast hollow, a Luna, and most recently a Clover, and I love the way he styled them. They're all super duper cute. The pictures for this week's doll of the week were posted over on my Discord, which is a super fun little community we've been building. Honestly, it's been super cool to have a place to interact with you all directly, share photos, art, and chat about literally anything. We even have a channel for people learning to sculpt, all helping each other out, which is kind of cool. If you'd like to join the Discord, the link is in the description. Otherwise, you can share your photos on Instagram and tag me directly, please. But you can also use the hashtag, though with the way Instagram is doing hashtags, it may be really difficult for me to see. But the sealant is cured now, so let's get back to painting. The glossy finish is something I really felt the 3D printed eyes were missing compared to cast bases, which are just naturally shiny. Now, I used to do this step using koi watercolors, but I recently experimented with doing it with resin, and I think I like the outcome better. So using a little bit of clear UV resin, I add a little bit of black UV resin pigment into the mix. Just a little bit. This gives it a bit of a grayish tinge. Using a small brush, I run over the colored part of the eye, being really careful not to add too much or to go outside the lines. Sometimes I'll do the whole colored part of the eye with this resin mix, sometimes just 3/4, sometimes just half. I sort of feel it out as I go. I add a little bit more black pigment into my clear resin and go in and add pupils to my eyes. By using resin instead of paint for this, I've been able to keep my irises rounder, which is definitely improving the look of the eye, I think. I cure that as well, and I also will add sometimes little black or white dots using the colored resin as well. I don't have a formula for this, I kind of just go with how I feel. But I do think they look really nice. Another benefit of using resin for this instead of paint is I don't need to spray again with the Gloss Mr. Super Clear because the resin is cured basically and it's not going to cause any runoff or bubbles. I've seen the error of my ways and researched, and I hope it will be enough to prevent a billion resin bubbles ruining my eyes. The things I'm doing differently this time are, number one, using a shallower eye base. The idea of using a deep eye base is really appealing since you can fit more details in, but it also needs more resin to fill, and more resin, more problems, more bubbles. Okay, number two is warming the resin. I keep my resin in hot water when I'm not actively using it. This makes it thinner and less prone to bubbling. And then number three, using a metal tool to pop the bubbles I can see and stir it around to create the dome. But yeah, after all that, I put them in my curing machine for a couple more minutes to make sure it's fully cured. It's the moment of truth. Let's see how they turned out. Yeah, Definitely better than my previous attempts. I really like a lot of these. Now, I only showed painting the 14s, but I did a whole bunch of them. Let me know what you guys think. If you see a pair there that you think is exceptionally pretty, let me know. And if you're already subscribed, thanks so much for subscribing. If you're new here, I hope you like the content and consider subscribing. I post every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, so there's always new Dolly content. As always, I hope you have a fantastic day. Bye!